Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter, Minnesota. It's Monday, March 11th, 2024 at 7 p.m. We are all called to order. Would all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is approval of the minutes. The minutes appear on approval of the agenda. Everybody's received a copy of the agenda. Are there any revisions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to approval of the minutes. The minutes appear on pages 7 to 9 of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next up, we have two public hearings on the agenda for tonight. Public hearings are conducted at City Council meetings and have an opportunity for general public and interested parties to hear and see information and to ask questions. The public hearing generally works in this manner. There is a staff presentation. If there is an applicant, the applicant's presentation, and then time for the public to make comments. Speakers have 5-minute time limit. You'll have to come to the microphone, say your name and your address, and you'll have your 5 minutes to speak. Anything else, Todd?
No, I think those are the rules.
All right, our first item, we're going to open this public hearing at 7:02 p.m. Public hearing is scheduled at this time to solicit public comment on a request for issuance of revenue bonds by the City of Bethel to refinance Ecumen Prairie Hill, a 63-unit independent living, assisted living, and memory care unit located at 1303, 1305, and 1307 Marshall Street in St. Peter, which is owned by the Second Century Housing. Notice of the hearing has been duly published in the St. Peter Herald. It is appropriate this time to consider public comment on the issue. Action to consider the request is scheduled under new business. So we'll conduct the public hearing and we'll act on the item under new business.
Mayor, members, I'm responsible for the presentation on this one. Information can be found in your packet on page 39. And while we don't see these very often, we have seen these in the city of St. Peter has participated in the past. This is really a request through the City of Bethel for Ecumen to refinance primarily senior living facilities that they own or their subsidiaries own. As you'll note within the body of the memo on page 39, there are a number of communities that are impacted by this, including Bethel, Owatonna, and the City of St. Peter at 2 locations and a couple others as well. You do not have any financial obligation to this issuance. The City of Bethel is the host city and they have no financial obligation. This is really a process that provides for the not-for-profit, which is Ecumen, to issue tax-exempt and taxed bonds for the refinancing. As you know, there are 2 locations within St. Peter. One is located on Marshall Street, and one is located off a driveway on Knight Street. This has been reviewed by your bond counsel at Taft, Mary Eppel, and there is a resolution that starts on page 41. Of course, that's potentially for later action. But I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you might have. Again, the City of St. Peter has acted not only as a participant in the past, but also as a host for issuances of this type. And again, since we have facilities located within our community, that's why you're asked to provide approval for Bethel to issue these tax-free and taxable bonds.
All right. Is there any member of the public who'd like to make comment at this time? Hearing nothing, we will take this matter up under new business. If you have questions for Todd, we'll take those at that time as well. We're going to close this public session at 7:05. We're going to move on to the next public hearing, which we will open at 7:05. This public hearing has been scheduled to solicit public comment on the proposed assessment of a portion of the costs related to the 2024 Pine Street Improvement Project. Notice of the hearing has been duly published in the St. Peter Herald, and the affected property owners have been notified directly. It's appropriate at this time to consider public comment on the issue. Action to consider the request has been scheduled under unfinished business. And Pete and Jeff are here to do the staff report.
Right, Madam Mayor and City Council, as required by Minnesota Statute 429, we are going to present a little bit of the background for Pine Street for discussion. Then as part of the assessment hearing, we'll take public input. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff to describe the project.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Mayor and council members, as Pete noted, this is the assessment hearing for the 2024 Pine Street Improvement Project. The improvements take place between Minnesota Avenue and South Washington Avenue. Improvements include sanitary sewer, water main, new utilities, service work, both sanitary and water service work, storm sewer work, new curb and gutter, new bituminous pavement, and various sidewalk improvements. It's funded by a combination of assessments and city. The city will be providing some funds also for the project, actually quite a majority of the funding for the project, only a portion is being assessed. Tonight's assessment hearing basically follows some individual meetings we've had with property owners, or city staff has had with property owners throughout the year, 2 informational meetings and an improvement hearing that was held a few months ago. So property owners were notified at tonight's meeting, as you mentioned, Mayor, through notice. The notice provided information as to how much their proposed assessment is, the term of their assessment, and the interest rate of the assessment. Then also information on how to object to the assessment or how to request a deferral of the assessment. And then the last thing I have to note is city standard assessment rates are $7,500 for a base rate for streets, curb and gutter, storm sewer, that sort of thing. That's if your home fronts Pine Street or has a Pine Street address. If your home is on the side yard, it doesn't have a Pine Street address, that assessment would be $3,750. Also $1,500 for sanitary sewer, the mains and the service, and $1,500 for water main and service. Other than that, that's all I had.
All right, thank you. If we have any questions, we'll take that up under unfinished business, so thank you very much. Now we have time on the agenda for public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to make comment during this public hearing? All right, if you want to come forward, there'll be, sorry, I don't know everybody's names.
Okay. I'm Denise Blaschko, Dave Iveland.
All right, Denise and Dave, if you want to come forward.
And Denise, if you don't mind, while you're walking up, you have submitted paperwork of your written objection, so we do have that, and that is read into the record, but you're sure welcome to read it again or say something else, that's just fine. Yeah, just want to make sure that you know that we have your piece of paper.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
Yep.
we do.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
as you know from the instructions, we'll ask you to state your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address the council. And if there's any discussion, we'll take that up under unfinished business.
Okay.
So if you get close to your 5 minutes, I'll give you a little
Okay.
wave to let you know.
Okay, I'm Denise Blaschko, 307 Pine.
I'm David Iveland, 307 Pine. Denise.
And if we ask a question, we couldn't hear what they were saying. So if we repeat ourselves, it's because we didn't hear it.
No worries.
We'll listen
Yeah.
to it at home. But
No
yeah.
worries. I totally
Okay.
understand.
I kind of prepared a letter of our objection to the assessments, and we'll just go from there. And it's not all inclusive or by any means, but best of our abilities, I guess. My name is David Iveland. I'm here with Denise Blaschko, who is the homeowner. We reside at 307 West Pine Street. We are here tonight to object to the special assessment for improvements involving construction of storm sewers, curb and gutter, hard surface Street, sanitary sewer water main on Pine Street between Highway 169 and Washington Avenue, a 4-block area in which our home is located. It is our understanding that all properties in this project are being assessed equal amounts of $10,500 plus any optional amounts by waiver. I have done approximate measurements of these properties using a measuring wheel. There are approximately 10 properties with a frontage of under 60 feet, 10 between 60 feet and 80 feet, 5 properties between 80 feet and 120 feet, and 7 properties between 120 and 182 feet. Our property frontage is about 52 feet. What I don't understand is why we should be assessed the same as someone that has 2 or 3 times the footage. How is this assessment determined? Supposedly is 20% of the cost of the project. My question is, why not 10% or 5%, or even city taxpayers taking the burden as they do with the school and other tax-funded projects? We understand the need to upgrade the city's infrastructure, but why should a few of us have to pay for it? I've read about this special assessment and don't understand how this special benefit to me can be $10,500 when the special benefit is measured by the increase in market value of our property. I've read some of the appraisal process and wonder how this construction project is going to contribute to the market value of our home. I've spoken with the county assessor, and she said this does not impact property value. I think it would be difficult to sell our home if we chose or needed to with the assessment attached to it. It would be a hardship on our budget. We don't qualify for any of the deferments because Denise is not 62 and I'm not the homeowner. I'm 70. Denise is not disabled, but she has a handicap sticker, and it's going to be a future implication probably. I think there are a lot of people on this project that have the same financial and physical health issues that we do. A few other things that may not be directly to the assessment per se, but they're questions we've had over the past. One is we had a tree on our boulevard cut down recently. I assume it's part of the street project that's over a water line or something like that. But this tree was planted after the tornado over that sewer water line, and I'm wondering why, if the city didn't address that then. The other thing was on the, we've had a curb and gutter and sidewalk done in the past. 1 year after we had done some improvements ourselves, we were told that this had to be done at the time because the curb didn't meet code and the sidewalks had raises and stuff like that were safety issues type thing. But in the same thing, our neighbors across the street, their curbs weren't done. They're in poor shape, and it's not from snowplow damages, in my opinion. It's from not being done at the time.
Yeah, at the time, it was probably around 10 years, and they came and redid the curb and sidewalk, and then they assessed us $4,000, estimate around $4,000. And now they're doing it again. That'll be the 3rd time we've paid for that sidewalk in 10 years, around 10 years. We have pictures of what our curb looks like, and at the time that we were told we had to replace that, we were told they were going to go around the neighborhoods and do anywhere where there's damage. Well, we got pictures showing that was not done. Ours was done. Our neighbors across the street have not been touched, other ones, and we have pictures to show that. So we've been assessed $4,000 already, and now we're asking almost another $11,000. And like I said, it's the 3rd time we've paid for that sidewalk, and there's nothing wrong with it right now. Curb, gutter, anything. Go ahead.
The only thing I was also going to mention on this assessment, we were told at the last meeting we had that there's possibilities of grant money type thing and other options for helping with this, and I guess we were looking for more concrete information on something like that. It's something we can apply for, or the city has to, or going forward, what needs to be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Denise, did you have anything else to add? No? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We We generally don't answer questions during this part of the meeting, but Pete, do you know off the top of your head, was that tree an emerald, was that an ash tree? So it was removed as part of the emerald ash borer removal process, not part of the street
I
project?
don't think that was an ash tree
Okay.
on our property.
Well, we'll figure that out and communicate about that. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who want to address us regarding Pine Street improvements? Charlie, are you here to talk about Pine Street improvements or something else?
Something else.
Okay. Anybody else?
Street improvements.
All right. Pine Street improvements. Anybody else wish to address the council at this time? All right, hearing nothing further, we're going to close the public hearing at 7:16 p.m. As I mentioned before, we'll take this up under unfinished business. Now we have time on our agenda for scheduling of visitor comments on agenda items. Is there any member of the public who'd like to address the council on an agenda item? Hearing none, we have time for general visitor comments, which is members of the audience who'd like to address the council on any matter whatsoever. Now would be your time, Charlie.
I do have public speaking anxiety, but my neighbors are here with me. I'm Charlie Putnam, and I live on Front Streets, 900 blocks off Front Street, and the Millers and the Johnsons, who are my neighbors, and have been for 40 years, are here to join and maybe add a few comments.
Of course.
So I can speak fine, I think, without any amplification. Being a teacher for 40 years or 30 years kind of helps along with that. Front Street, like I said, I moved in there in 82, so we've seen a lot of changes. The old cafe, Alice and Bill's, and the gas station next to it are long gone. The house next to that is long gone. The little place where all the cats hung out is gone, or the cats have gone somewhere else. Quick Trip has moved in, and now there's a stoplight down there, which in many ways I was glad for that, because before, if we wanted to go south towards Mankato, we would have to either figure out a way to jump across and onto 169 and head south, or what I used to do is just go up to the stoplight by the courthouse and then turn down 169 from there. But we have been noticing an increasing amount of traffic coming down our street. And not only the amount of traffic has increased quite a lot, and I wouldn't want to begin to even try and figure out exact numbers or anything, but very, very noticeably. But we've also noticed the speed that they seem to be allowed to travel at. Speeding, frankly, lots of them. I would venture to guess 40 miles an hour was in the okay range almost, where it's posted at 30, I'm sure. It would not be uncommon to see someone zip down there 50 miles an hour, several times a day. If you're out there in the morning, during rush hour, that's when we see more and more of that. In the afternoon, at rush hour time, 4 o'clock or so, we see an increase in that also. I have been driving the speed limit down Front Street and have been passed by other cars, tailgated and then passed. And I think my neighbors would agree that they've experienced the same thing. Okay. So with that said, it seems to me that Front Street, which used to be a residential street, people used to walk down our street. It was a way to get kind of through town and maybe walk down to the park and around and then head back home. People that were walking for exercise, bicyclists. You'd see a lot of people, but not a lot of that kind of commuter kind of traffic there. So, comments?
Can I comment at all?
You can, you would just need to come to the microphone and give us your name and address. Sorry, I know everybody loves
That's all right.
public speaking, but
I'm not a public speaker. But I'm Roger Johnson. I live right straight across from Charlie. And there's semis going both directions up there, almost just to avoid all the stoplights, I'm believing is what they're doing it for. But boy, they don't stop or slow down at all anywhere in that section. So, granted, we don't have any really small kids, but boy, anybody just not noticing them coming at you and another one going this way, it's kind of scary.
Mr. Johnson, if I may I get your address? Charlie
Not-
mentioned his, may I get your address?
Sure, it's 906 South Front Street.
Thank you.
That's my main complaint is that. And I'm surprised we haven't had accidents already for as fast as some of these people go down that street.
Yeah, there was a incident, my nephew was over to pick up some things, some artwork from my house, and when he was pulling out, someone that lived just a couple houses down, their cat ran out into the street and got run over. And my nephew was just, it freaked him out. And he tried to get the license number of the person. The person didn't even slow down. Ran over the cat, and the cat got taken down to the kind vet immediately, and it didn't make it. But that car was going fast enough where, you know, not only it hit an animal, it was obviously not a squirrel or something, and didn't even bother to slow down. I'm also surprised something is going to happen one of these days. Either someone's going to back out to head down the street, or and get hit that way, or the kids. We don't have a lot of kids in the neighborhood, but there are some because there's a bus stop, and there are some children that go down there and get on the bus every day, about a block from my house. And I guess my request is to see if we can, at least as the council, can acknowledge that there is an issue to be dealt with here. You ask around town and people mention Front Street. Oh yeah, geez, there's a lot of traffic on Front Street. Says, I hope you don't go 40 or 50 miles an hour. Well, no, I don't do that. A lot of people use that street to bypass downtown. In fact, they used to kind of advertise that as, well, you go to Ace Hardware, you park behind Ace Hardware. You go down Front Street, and that's how you get there. But the traffic has increased incredibly, and the speed at which it travels is not acceptable. So I'm asking that we acknowledge that there's a problem, and that also that we consider some options as far as dealing with that problem. One suggestion that I hear the most is putting a stop sign or two in. One down by the courthouse would not be a bad idea. One maybe closer to the mill pond, or going back in the other direction. Either on, yeah, further down, maybe College or one of those could be another possibility.
I want to keep us on time, so I want to see if there's anybody else who's joining you tonight who'd like to make any comment. Okay, thank you. Well, we will certainly discuss this as a council, and I've been taking notes. I haven't been looking down at my paper to ignore you. I'm taking notes, and so we'll follow up, and somebody will possibly get back to you with questions or comments.
And the thing that I did not mention, I guess, is between stop signs and speed bumps. How about maybe just stopping people and giving them tickets for going too fast? I haven't seen one happen in a long, long time. And if there's records being kept, I'd like to see, I mean, if they keep track of who gets arrested for what in the city, does the police department keep a record of things like that?
Oh, yeah, we
get
keep, we
tickets?
keep records of all traffic
It'd be interesting to
stops.
see how many tickets have been issued on Front Street for speeding.
And I could almost say a little bit more about that, how fast they are going. They're going 40, 50 miles an hour on a small street where there's kids playing and stuff like that. I mean, something's gonna happen eventually if we keep it up the way it is.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate having people come to council meetings. It's more rare than you would imagine, and so appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
You'd please respond in some way, that would be really good to hear what you're talking about.
Right. We are going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins on page 3 of the packet with the memo there and concludes with the resolution that starts on page 23 of the packet. I guess it's a one-page resolution, so it is on page 23 of the packet. The consent agenda includes the following regular and seasonal employee appointments approved at the wages and the position indicated. We have 5 this evening for Don Brown, Alexander Lewis, Garrett Domross, Parker Domross, and Alex Lebedev. The following property for which the city no longer has a need is hereby declared as surplus, and the city administrator is directed to provide for public sale as authorized in city code. That's a 2001 Dodge Ram van, as well as the schedule of disbursements for February 22nd, 2024 through March 6th, 2024. Is there any discussion of any items on the consent agenda? Brad?
Pete, I have a question on the van. Does it really only have 38,000 miles on it?
It does.
Are you sure the city was using it and it wasn't some widow driving it to the grocery store and back for the last 20 years?
No, it was a specialty vehicle,
Okay.
so that's why it only has real low miles.
Okay, thanks.
Additional questions? Hearing none, the resolution approving the consent agenda is on page 23 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramth,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Under unfinished business, adoption of a resolution approving assessments for the 2024 Pine Streets Improvement Project. And Pete is here again to tell us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, before you, I won't go through the entire project again, but you have the Pine Street project. As Jeff had mentioned, $298,500 is the planned assessment amount. Based on that, the city would be responsible for $1,047,517.34. So roughly 28% of that project would be assessed. The total project, including waivers, which we have worked with homeowners on, would be $1.371,200 related to that. So there'll be some additional work that is accomplished on private property. For the Blaschko property, we had talked about, there was a question about a tree. We did look that up and clarified that that tree is over a sanitary sewer, and that is why it was removed.
Okay.
It is not an EAB tree, so.
Okay. I don't know if you guys heard that. It was removed. It was
Yeah,
not
so
an
the-
EAB tree.
There, on top of the sewer line
Yes.
after the tornado.
Right. And what we're asking tonight is that you approve the resolution on page 26.
All right, questions for Pete? I guess I have a question, I just want to clarify. There was some discussion about the sidewalk, and we did change our assessment policy. So I could be misremembering, but my recollection is that homeowners aren't actually paying for the sidewalk. Am I remembering that
It is part
correctly?
of the street and curb and gutter assessment.
Okay, it is part of
Yep.
the street and curb and gutter, thank you. Any other questions? Oh,
Another point of clarification that might help our guest that came.
Sure.
Can you explain why the 20% exists for homeowners under state statute?
Sure, unless Todd, you want to.
I'm happy to. It relates to the council's ability to issue debt related to costs on the project. Under Minnesota Statute 429, you are required to assess a minimum of 20% of the funding for the project. And so in this instance, the project is specifically related to the street. Since your utility funds are paying for the water and sewer, any assessments related to water and sewer relate to service lines.
So we are already assessing the minimum we can under statute.
Without calculating again in my head, you're very near that minimum, yes.
Mine was a generalized statement on overall project cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question, are there grant funds available?
We've
There
worked,
are grant funds available from time to time, and we do apply for those grants. However, there have not been any available in the cycle for this project, nor for the last year, and I think it's unlikely for at least the next couple of years to see projects for residential streets of this nature.
Okay. Additional questions for Todd or for Pete? Hearing no further discussion, the resolution adopting assessments for 2024 Pine Street improvements from South Washington Avenue to South Minnesota Avenue is on page 26 and 27 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ranth.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenthal.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
And Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up is adoption of a resolution approving execution of an updated memorandum of agreement for One Watershed, One Plan program.
Madam Mayor and City Council, I think we've been back here about 3 times on this agreement. I appreciate your patience on this. On pages 30 and 31, the highlighted yellow areas are the additional language that was put into the agreement that all communities will process. And what I'm asking you to do tonight is to approve the resolution on page 37 with the corrected language.
And I see the corrected language is highlighted, I believe.
Yes.
Yep. Any questions for Pete on this? Hearing no questions, the resolution rescinding resolution number 2024-26 and authorizing execution of an updated memorandum of agreement with the Minnesota River Mankato Watershed, One Plan project is on pages 37 through 38 of the packet.
If I can, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
one thing that the resolution does not include is direction for the mayor and city administrator to sign the agreement. And so if we could, I'd propose that modification be provided for as a part of the resolution.
Is there somebody who would make a motion to approve the resolution as with that modification?
I will.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Weisenthal.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ranth.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Moving on, our first item of new business tonight is the adoption of a resolution approving a request for issuance of revenue bonds by the city of Bethel to refinance in part the Ecumen Prairie Hill facility in St. Peter.
Mayor members, you may recall that earlier in the meeting, you had a public hearing on this item where I provided some information. I'm happy to go through it at an excruciatingly high level, painful level of detail. But if you have any questions, I'm just happy to answer those as best I can. I think it's important to note that really technically what you're doing here is providing approval for the city of Bethel to issue or to allow the issuance of $25 million or approximately $25 million in debt related to housing, primarily senior housing, that's owned by Ecumen or its subsidiaries, and that debt can be tax-free or taxable revenue debt. There's no financial obligation on the part of the city council for this, should something go wrong. And again, this is a cooperative effort, and you've participated in these in the past. The resolution and the information and agreements have been reviewed by your council at Taft, your bond council, Mary Epple, and as to form, they approve them. What's next would be approval of the resolution from the city council, should you desire.
Questions for Todd? Any follow-up? Hearing none, the resolution consenting to and approving the issuance by the City of Bethel of revenue obligations to refinance revenue obligations issued by the City of St. Peter and to finance and refinance a project located within the City of St. Peter and taking other actions with respect thereto is on pages 41 through 43 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of an ordinance modifying city code regulations related to dog and cat licensing.
Mayor members, as you see within your packet, starting on page 44, and you may recall, the council's had numerous discussions about licensing provisions for dogs and cats that are articulated as part of this ordinance. Asked staff to draft a modification to the city code, which you reviewed at workshop, and which you gave tentative approval to publish and move forward and make sure that it was an agenda item on a future council meeting. We've come to that council meeting and the information has been published appropriately according to the state law. It's a relatively small ordinance change overall from the number of words that are used, but certainly a larger change related to what the city has done over the past 30, 40 plus years. And so the only modification that is occurring here is that there is no licensing requirement for dogs or cats should you approve this ordinance. Dogs and cats are still required to have rabies vaccinations under the ordinance. They're still required to be kept under control and on leash. Nothing like that is changing. This only has to do with the licensing provisions. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I think the ordinance is pretty self-explanatory related to that. And again, we've talked about this on a couple of other occasions.
Cindy has been communicating to pet owners about the possibility of this ordinance passing. I know this because I'm a pet owner and I get those emails. When she does, I'm assuming there'll be another communication out saying the ordinance passed. Will it also include information saying rabies vaccinations are still required and some of that? Those details I think would be helpful.
You bet. We can certainly do it that way. Our plan was to communicate in the same way that we have been communicating. Since the first of the year, we have not taken any license fees that I'm aware of. If we have, then we would reimburse folks for that, and that would take a little bit of time. But the goal would be to communicate that no licenses are needed, and this would also be true, as you know, we work in a 2-year cycle, and so we'd also communicate that. Again, we put it on our calendars for next year, so that people in that second cycle didn't wonder, I wonder what's going on with this.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a wonderful thing that we could include as well.
Okay, super. Additional questions for Todd? Hearing none, the ordinance amending St. Peter City Code Chapter 8, Animals, and adopting by reference St. Peter City Code Chapter 1, Section 1 through 6, which among other things contain penalty provisions, is on page 45 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
The ordinance is approved. Next up, adoption of an ordinance modifying the city code to provide for regulation of breweries.
Members, your city attorney is here. He's been the primary drafter of this ordinance. Before Jim gets going, I do want to mention that our goal here, we don't believe that anyone that is brewing within your community is in violation of your current ordinance. However, we wanted to make sure that because you're seeing one and potentially 2 breweries come to town, that this was in compliance with the state rules. So Jim, I'll get out of the way and let you do your thing.
Yeah, basically our ordinance now, our proposed ordinance is to bring it into compliance with Minnesota statutes dealing with breweries. It pretty much follows the state statute, that was the goal. I didn't see anything in there that would be something I thought would be inappropriate, so I just pretty much follow the state statute. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Questions for Jim?
Members, I do want to mention that this is something, as with the previous ordinance, you reviewed at a workshop with Jim and directed the staff to continue to move forward to the publication phase, which has been done appropriately. And this is the meeting, obviously, when it comes back to you.
Could you potentially just point to the sections that were changed again, to just refresh our memories.
The section that are changed? Sorry,
Since our last discussion?
Yeah, didn't we have a discussion about the growlers and how they were sealed and whether or not those were going to be, whether we could reuse other breweries' growlers or whether they had to be from the specific brewery?
just a second, I think I think if you go to.
Page
sub-
49 towards the top.
I think if you look at, section, 4.
Got it.
111, and you go down to,
Two.
parent, 2, close parent, brewer may, but it's not required to refill growlers with malt liquor for off sale at the request of the consumer. The brewer refilling growler must do so on a licensed premises and note the time of sale. So that would mean if you bring a growler in and you can fill it that time.
Great,
Well,
thank
That
you.
was the one concern that was raised.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
thank you.
So in other words, you bring one from Mankato and fill it at Paddle Fish.
Mhm.
Additional questions? Hearing nothing further, the ordinance amending St. Peter City Code Chapter 4, alcoholic beverages, and adopting by reference St. Peter City Code Chapter 1, Section 1 through 6, which among other things contain penalty provisions, is printed on pages 47 through 50 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Madam Mayor, if I could, just for clarification, who made the second?
Dustin.
Thank you. I'll start the roll. Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Rath,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
The ordinance is approved. Moving on, adoption of a resolution retaining Bolton and Mank to provide design engineering services for Cullen Street improvements.
Madam Mayor and City Council, as we have discussed at workshop, the city is interested in working with developers to develop the Cullen Street Improvements Project. This is an area from Essler Drive north to about 500 feet north of Clark Street. So this would tie the Traverse Green subdivision into the Clark Street Improvements area with mostly residential. As Todd has on the map up there on page 53, our idea would be to develop the scope based on working out the preliminary design here. The schedule would be Bolton and Mink would work April, May, and part of June on developing the plans and specifications. Once approved, we would take that out for bid and bring that information back to the City Council for further action. If the City Council so approves the improvement, fall construction could begin out in that area. Lots would vary in size from 9,000 to 16,000 square feet, and they are color coded there so that you can see where that would be. Our recommendation is that we authorize Bolton and Mink to prepare the plans and specifications, do preliminary and final plating, plus do bidding services in the amount of $150,500. And there is a resolution on page 54 that we're asking approval.
All right, questions for Pete or Todd? Do you have anything to add?
Mayor members, you've talked about this project on a number of occasions. We've talked about potential partners, development agreements, what you're looking for, what your target marketplace is relative to size of lot. As you know, one of the challenges that is faced by developers is that assessments on projects like this, depending on the size of lot, could range anywhere from $75,000 to $85,000 per lot, $75,000 to $85,000 per lot for streets, and sidewalk, and curb and gutter, and stormwater, and water and sewer. And so it's important to note that this is really a big effort to move this project forward, and that one of the risk mitigators is that as you spend these dollars, if the bids come in too high, you can certainly stop, but the work that's been done is not really lost. You could come back and revisit this and rebid it at some point in the future if you believe or we believe there is a better opportunity for a low bid in the future. Again, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. This does not get you to accepting bids quite yet. You would need to take additional action. We also anticipate additional action related to development agreement with partners. And so you should expect to see that, as we discussed at your last workshop, at a future council meeting.
Thanks. Questions for Todd or for Pete? We've had a lot of discussions about this, so lack of questions doesn't mean there hasn't been lots of discussion at workshops. The resolution retaining Bolton and Mink Inc. to complete design services for the 2024 Cullen Street improvements, Usler Drive to north of Clark Street, is on page 54 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Duas.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Let's see. Our last item of new business right now is the adoption of a resolution authorizing submission of DNR outdoor recreational grant application for Gorman Park improvements. And Pete is here to talk to us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, as you guys are aware, we are in the process of seeking funding for the Gorman Park improvements. We're asking tonight for you to approve the resolution on page 57, which authorizes the city to use matching funds should we receive a grant in the amount of $350,000. The matching grant portion is a requirement to receive this grant that we're applying for, and without the commitment of the matching funds, we would not be grant eligible. Our goal with this would be to apply to the Department of Natural Resources. It's the outdoor recreation grant application for Gorman Park. And our overall goal is we have been successful in receiving some of these funds in the past. Our goal with this would be a key instrument in us receiving some additional funds going forward and eventually filling out the funding needs for Gorman Park. As I had mentioned, the resolution's on page 57 and the schedule is on page 55. If you have any questions, I will stand for those.
Questions for Pete? Hearing no questions, the resolution authorizing application for the 2024 Department of Natural Resources Outdoor Recreational Grant is on page 57 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Pete.
Pete.
Moving on to reports, I have one report tonight, which is to declare Women's History Month. Whereas women of St. Peter of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our city in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas women of St. Peter have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of life of the city by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside the home. And whereas women of St. Peter have played a unique role throughout the history of the city by providing a large portion of the volunteer labor force, and whereas women of St. Peter are particularly important in the establishment of every charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institution in our community, and whereas women of St. Peter have helped shape every major progressive social change movement, and whereas women of St. Peter have been leaders for the betterment of the community, now, therefore, I, Shannon A. Noel, Mayor of the City of St. Peter, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Women's History Month in the city, and hereby do encourage St. Peter residents to participate in Women's History Month programs, ceremonies, and activities, including the Women Celebrating Women event on April 2nd, 2024, with a theme of inspiring inclusion. A witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of St. Peter to be affixed this 11th day of March 2024. That is my report for tonight. Reports from any council members. I believe we have council members who will report on the APPA
Do we have the same?
You have the same one, so
Oh,
go ahead.
you can.
No, you can go ahead.
Well, Councilmember DeVos, Public Works Director Moulton, and I went to DC 2 weeks ago for the American Public Power Association Legislative Rally. Approximately 60 representatives of municipal utilities, ranging from utility managers to commissioners, council members, joined Minnesota Municipal Utility Association staff to promote federal issues. This year's agenda included preserving the ability to provide reliable, affordable, and sustainable power to our respective customers, which Councilmember DeVos graciously presented on to Senator Smith's staff, taking steps to fix the supply chain crisis, in particular with transformers. And third, we stressed the importance of modernizing public sector financing by reauthorizing advanced refund bonds and increasing the small issuer threshold from $10 million to $30 million, allowing for communities to take advantage of more local banks during the bonding process. We had a good time.
Good. It was worthwhile.
It was very worthwhile. Yep.
And thanks, Josh, for covering all that. And yeah, it was definitely worthwhile. And you know, we're lucky to have Josh with his legal background, and also from his being 2 generations younger than me, and him pointing out on multiple times him not being alive during events Pete and I were talking about.
Ouch!
Felt that way, but no, it was actually great to have having Josh there. It was great, as I said. Having his perspective, both from a legal perspective and from his generation, it really provides a different perspective as to what we're usually used to talking about. Josh covered, the big issues that we were there for the APPA rally. As he indicated, I got to speak on the abilities, reliability, affordability, and sustainability. And I was lucky enough to be the very first presenter of the day to the first congressional delegation. Tried not to embarrass the city, but I think Pete's shared the video with Todd, and they're preparing articles of impeachment at this time. One of the big things, besides the actual rally on Wednesday, is the networking with other cities and seeing what other cities are doing. One of the things you learn is attitude is everything, particularly in this changing regulatory environment. It was a mix of cities lamenting clean energy rules that we have to deal with by 2040, along with interacting with the city of Rochester, which is full steam ahead of 100% renewables by 2030. Really, while SIMPA is imperfect, we are lucky to be within this changing environment, to have them to work with us through this transition with their purchasing power, to leverage that in order to get to the renewable goal by 2040. There are a lot of cities that either have loose affiliations or no affiliations that have to figure it out on their own and with their own resources. The other thing, as far as the association, I was talking to a public utilities commissioner last week, and he even emphasized how lucky we are to be part of a group like SIMPA for this. The other thing I mentioned with how great it was with Josh there, having Pete Moulton represent us on SIMPA with his background and his knowledge is really an asset for the city. His leadership, during not just the regulatory changes, but there are major SIMPA membership changes coming. That with the dropping out of Rochester, St. Peter's going to move up some as far as our ability, as well as just allocation of resources. As I say, we're very lucky to have Pete Moulton as a representative there. His leadership position, he's currently vice president of the board, and his knowledge of all of the players, the various cities, not just within SIMPA, but within the state, and all of the people who work with them. It's great to just see how much respect he has there, and and the direction he's able to push things. So that's what I have to say.
Well, thanks to Josh and Brad for attending, and of course, I'll second all of your kind remarks about Pete. We really appreciate the work that you do as well, Pete. Any further reports from council members? Hearing nothing, reports from the city administrator.
Mayor, members, the only report that I have is to remind members that are on the Joint Powers Board that Minnesota River Valley Transit has a board meeting tomorrow at 2:30. at City Hall. It's your meeting for every other month you meet, and so I expect we'll be talking certainly about summer scheduling, particularly in the city of Le Sueur. And so that's probably the biggest topic that you should be aware of. And so if anybody has any questions, please let me know, but hope to see you tomorrow.
All right. Our next item of business is an executive session. We have a resolution calling for a closed session for a possible land sale.
Mayor, members, the resolution is included on the last page of your packet on page 59. This relates to real estate transaction, which is allowed to be taken care of during the closed session. And this is a discussion on 107 West Nassau Street, what we commonly refer to as the old library lot. I would anticipate closed session, and you would come back into regular session to adjourn only. I do not anticipate any action on this item or other actions beyond or in addition to adjournment.
So we will move down to the Traverse de Sioux room and come into open session only to adjourn.
Correct.
All right. The resolution is on page 59 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the resolution calling for a closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We are going into closed session. It is 7:56 p.m.
Thank you, Mayor.